I got one more. You mentioned this earlier, and I want to come back around to this because this goes into, I think, the quiet part that we don't talk about a lot. And you mentioned you wanted to know parenting style. So obviously, you and I, we meet with dozens of people a month. We see all sorts of different styles, all sorts of different walks of life. Why does knowing the other parent's parenting style as well as your clients, why does that matter, and how does that help an attorney?
So, and I'm not sure how it is in Southern California, but here, we seem to get dads or blue collar workers. So their parenting style might be a little bit more hands off. Their kids might come home, they might play outside and get a scrape on their knee. No big deal. Put a Band-Aid on it. You're great. The other side, though, might be a helicopter mom. So when you drop off your kid at an exchange, there might be a bruise, there might be a scrape, automatic. I've seen so many calls to the Department of Children and Families about bruises or scrapes or dirt or kids that are just playing outside. And then there's an investigation. Anytime that there's an open investigation, there's usually a filing for an emergency modification. Then we're back in court. So I like to know, like, look, if you're hands off, you need to document everything because you need to know, okay, well, they were playing outside. They got a scrape. Make sure you take a picture of it, send it in a text to the other side and say, hey, look, she fell off the swing and she got a scrape on her knee. No big deal. She's fine. Make sure that you keep the open lines of communication because if you don't do that, then the first time that the opposing party sees it as at an exchange or when they get home from an exchange, automatic gaslight. She's calling you, accusing you of abuse, neglect, all these things. And then, of course, your first instinct is to get defensive. And then that just, again, gaslight. That just leads us back to court. Our goal is to stay out of court. Like, I don't mind going to court. I'll go to court. I'll go to war, whatever. My main goal, though, is to keep the parties cordial for the best interest of the child. That's not always possible, but the goal is to stay out of court and to come to agreements on this kind of stuff. But if you're not open and transparent with each other, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I'll say this, given our demographics here, I know in California, women it's 3 to 4 times as likely. We call our CPS Child and Family Services. So they're 3 to 4 times as likely to call Child and Family Services. And I think that there's just a general dads are willing to allow the kids to play rougher, allow the kids to get away with maybe jumping that fence, climbing that tree a lot more frequently than mom will allow. And it honestly does lead to a lot of unnecessary investigations. I've seen situations where it's like 8-year-old boy falling out of a tree leads to dad not seeing kid for 8 weeks while we get a Child and Family Services report back.
Absolutely, because then they have to interview the mom who wasn't there but apparently knows everything about what happened, and dad who was there but probably wasn't monitoring because he's an 8-year-old boy playing outside. You don't have to helicopter over him. And then they have to interview the 8-year-old boy who's being pulled from probably both sides about what to say. And so then there's inconsistency there, which leads to more questions and more inquiries and more concerns. And so, I mean, you might lose, like you said, 8 weeks of parenting time because of one fall out of a tree. I've seen it happen. It's terrible when it happens, but I've seen it.
That no parent would have stopped. The kid was going to fall no matter who was watching him.
A kid can fall off a swing. I mean, so then that leads down the slippery slope. Are you going to keep kids off swing sets? No. Accidents happen. That's what parents seem to forget. Kids are kids. Accidents happen. Scrapes and bruises do happen. You can't keep it.
The emergency room would be taking a lot of kids from married couples if swing sets were banned or you weren't allowed to climb trees.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
that's something I always warn my guys. I say I've never framed it in the parenting style thing, and I really, really like that. But I look at them and I say, like, here's the deal. If she is watching like a hawk and she's complaining about bruises, like, you just have to be able to be accountable to it. And I think the best way to defend, and I'm going to follow up with a question to you on this. I think, in my opinion, the best way to defend against that is to keep an open line of communication. Like, I'm always blown away by the number of child and family services investigations with toddlers with bruises. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've watched toddlers run directly into a wall full speed and not think anything about it. They're gonna get bruises.
Yeah.
They're gonna get beat up. Their knees gonna swell up because they fall on the playground.
Mm-hmm.
But what is your advice? So dad walks into your office, and one of these situations is already transpired. So mom called CPS, Child and Family Services, whatever your state calls it. To any of our viewers, it's different in every state because they like to be confusing. But dad comes in and says, "Hey, there's an emergency order that I don't get to see my kid for until a hearing in 6 weeks or 8 weeks because CPS is investigating." What is your advice to dads to getting through that, and then what they can do moving forward to avoid that?
We're in a rural area, and here it's DCF, it's Department of Children and Families. And I know probably every DCF investigator, every DCF caseworker, because I do a lot of child needed care stuff here too.
Yeah.
So they're handed like an investigation report that there is an open investigation. Well, I just call them straight up. Call them, say, "Look, what's the deal with this case? I realize you can't tell me everything, but I'm representing this guy, trying to help him out. Can we sit down?" Sure. So then, and if they say no, then I usually see him at court, and I can kind of corner him there. Not really corner him, but I can kind of, start to nudge a little bit. But normally they're open to talk. So then I just talk to him, say, "Look, here's the alleged situation. This is what happened. He's willing to sit down and talk with you. If this is actually what happened, then can I have you show up and testify at a motion to modify?" Now, they really can't say much because they're handcuffed by the department because there's still an ongoing investigation. But really, I can get their opinion in court because of their stature because the judge sees them all the time too. He has open cases with them. So I would usually file a motion to modify because it's probably constricted on the domestic case, not the DCF case. The DCF case would come about if there's an open child needed care case. No. The domestic case is your divorce or paternity action. But normally, if there's a DCF investigation that might lead to a sync case, the other party catches wind of that and files the motion for ex parte emergency orders. That's where the control of the parenting agreement comes in. That way, if we try to modify that back, I could subpoena the DCF worker and say, "Look, this is what happened. He's willing to testify to it. He's going to testify to it. And then I'm going to call you as a witness and say, if this is actually what happened, do you have concerns about the child's safety and modifying it back to the original parenting agreement?" Most of the time it's no. They don't have any concerns if that's what's actually happened. Yeah. That's how I would combat it.
Yeah. And that's the scary thing about family court is that family court judges, just the burdens they're given and the instructions they're given goes back to some bad laws. But obviously, I think we understand why the laws exist. But if an ex parte motion gets put in front of a judge that a local agency is investigating dad for sexual abuse, physical abuse of the child being beaten up in some form or fashion, it's the family court judge really, based on the laws, has no choice but to step in and do something.
Right. And that's, and the law here is still, it's vague. And basically, if there's a child in danger, he has a duty, and it's with an abundance of caution. Like the statute actually says, with an abundance of caution.
Yep. Same here.
If there's a child in danger, then you are obligated to make that finding and change those orders. And then it's a pretty big burden to have it shifted back.
Yeah, no, that's the that's the biggest challenge, because you get a situation where it creates a new status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those.
That's a great point, is the creation of a new status quo. Because then if those temporary orders are in place for 8 weeks, and it's 8 weeks out of the school year, and your guy just lost a bunch of parenting time, and say that he might have had 50-50 custody going into that, but the child's been with mom for 8 weeks straight now without even seeing dad, will not have a new status quo. She could then go say, well, we've gotten comfortable. The child's acclimated to my home. I'm up on the grades and doctor's appointments and stuff. He's missed all of this. There's been a big change in the last 8 weeks. We would like to see the mom retain residential custody. You can have it every other weekend, even though prior to that incident, he had 50-50. It can happen like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that, I mean, that goes back. I hate to say it, but I feel like dads are usually on the raw end. That's one of the big things is, hey, dad allows more to happen at his house, whether it be roughhousing outside, wrestling in the house, and you get hit with one of these. And I just had a situation where right now, Child and Family Services out here is backed up, and it was supposed to be 30 days. It turned into 120 days. And at that point, the girls were a little bit older, and the judge just said, hey, you know what, we're going to do it at the kid's discretion, despite the fact that dad had been the primary parent for over a decade.
Right. Or it could happen, you know, I'm not sure how it works in your practice, but say, you know, mom might get the kids most, you know, she might be in Kansas, we call it the residential parent. So mom might be the residential parent during the school year, and then it flips. Usually we try to get it to flip for the summer months so the dad can kind of catch up on parenting time. We'll say that there's an incident toward the end of the school year where, you know, dad's alleged of doing something, whether it be neglect or sexual abuse or anything like that. And then it takes 120 days to complete, you know, to complete the investigation. That's August. You've missed out on all of your summer parenting time, and you roll right back into the next school year. And you can't really go to the judge and say, look, judge, you know, I want my schedule, or, you know, I want my parenting time reinforced because I lost it due to a DCF investigation for abuse. Judge probably isn't going to grant that just because of the stigma of a DCF investigation for abuse. So you've basically just lost your parenting time.
Yeah, that's the other one I've seen is Christmas break. Now that a lot of schools have this year-round school where Christmas break may be 4 weeks. And then also this past August, I saw a rash of these, and it seemed like mom was trying to change the kids' schools. So mom would get full legal and physical custody on a temporary basis. And if a dad waited and maybe didn't retain me until after, the judge may have just slapped full legal and physical custody to mom, and I wasn't able to raise my hand and say, we need status quo to stay on this important stuff. And so mom had the right and the ability to make these changes.
Yeah. And that's a problem because once you change schools, then you got to track down, you know, because if she has sole decision-making power, she didn't have to share information with you. You know, most of the time, and they're probably not going to, if she moves schools on you without telling you, she doesn't respect your relationship with the child, and she doesn't respect your ability to parent your child. So that's why it's very important to stay on top of it.
Yeah.